Florida is known today for its beaches, sunshine, and theme parks. But beneath the surface of this modern paradise lies a story that is far older, stranger, and harder to explain. Across this land are hidden structures that stretch back thousands of years, built by hands we can no longer identify, for purposes we can no longer fully understand. They are the silent echoes of cultures erased by time. One of the most mysterious of these places lies on Florida's Gulf Coast, along the banks of the Crystal River. At first glance, the river seems like any other. Calm waters, birds circling overhead, the scent of salt drifting in from the sea. But on its shore rise mounds of earth, taller than a man, larger than a house, placed there not by nature but by ancient builders. The Crystal River site is vast. 6 great mounds stand here, along with plazas, canals, and a scattering of carved stone monuments. Archaeologists estimate the site was active for more than 1,000 years, beginning 2 millennia ago. In that time, it drew thousands of people from far across the region. They came with offerings of shell, copper, and exotic stones carried over hundreds of miles. They came not for trade, but for ceremony. At the heart of the site stand the burial mounds. When excavated, they revealed hundreds of individuals, carefully interred. Some had been cremated, others lay intact. Many were buried with beads, tools, or ornaments. Each burial was deliberate, suggesting rituals of deep spiritual importance. To the people who built Crystal River, death was not the end, but a journey. The mounds were not graves, they were gateways. The site also includes platform mounds, broad flat structures that once supported temples or the homes of leaders. These were not random piles of soil. They were engineered with precision, layer by layer, in ways that required organization, labor, and knowledge of the land. To raise such monuments took generations of effort, proving this was not an ordinary village. It was a center of power, religion, and culture. And then there are the carved stones. At Crystal River, upright slabs of limestone were placed in deliberate positions. Some still bear faint carvings, now eroded by time. No one knows what they once depicted. Were they images of gods, markers of important rituals, symbols of celestial patterns? Their presence is unique. Few other sites in Florida contain anything like them, making Crystal River an anomaly among ancient settlements. Who were the builders? Archaeologists give them names like the Swift Creek or Weedon Island cultures, based on pottery styles and artifact similarities. But these are modern labels. The truth is, we do not know what they called themselves, what language they spoke, or how they understood the world. Their voices are gone. All that remains are the structures in the earth. The placement of the mounds has raised further questions. Some align with the river. Others may align with solar and lunar cycles. Scholars have suggested the site might have doubled as an observatory, a way of marking time, seasons, and ceremonies by watching the movements of the sun and stars. Across the ancient world, sacred sites often served this dual purpose both as temples and as calendars carved into the landscape. The Crystal River site is evidence of connection. Artifacts found here, like copper from the Great Lakes and shells from the Gulf of Mexico, show that its builders were part of a vast network of trade and ideas. Florida was not isolated. It was part of a much larger world, and Crystal River may have been a central meeting place within it. Today, the mounds sit quietly, bordered by neighborhoods and forests. Visitors can walk among them, but few truly understand the depth of their history. These structures are more than 2,000 years old, older than Rome's fall, older than medieval Europe, older than most of the civilizations we think of when we imagine history, and yet they endure, silent and unmoving, reminders of a people we can barely name. The builders of Crystal River vanished long before Europeans ever set foot in Florida. Their language, stories, and beliefs are gone, but their earthworks remain. They testify that Florida's history did not begin with Spanish explorers or modern settlers. It began much earlier, with cultures capable of creating sacred landscapes of astonishing scale. Standing before the Crystal River Mounds today, one cannot help but feel a presence. The ground itself seems to remember. These earthworks were places of gathering, of ceremony, of mourning, of hope. They were Florida's first monuments, built not of stone, but of soil, sweat, and faith. The mystery endures. Why did people choose this riverbank for such a sacred site? What gods or spirits did they believe watched over them here? What stories were told as fires burned on the mounds at night? The answers are lost, scattered like the ashes of those who were buried beneath the earth. But one thing is certain. The Crystal River Mounds prove that Florida has always been more than swamps and sunshine. Beneath the familiar surface lies a hidden history, older and stranger than most imagine. A history carved not in books, but in the very soil beneath our feet. At the mouth of the Miami River, in the heart of one of Florida's busiest cities, lies a circle cut into the bedrock. To the thousands who pass by every day, it may look unremarkable. But this circle has puzzled scientists, historians, and archaeologists since the day it was uncovered. It is known as the Miami Circle, and it may be one of the most mysterious ancient sites in all of North America. The discovery was an accident. In 1998, a parcel of land near downtown Miami was being prepared for high-rise construction. Bulldozers scraped away layers of soil, and there, beneath the surface, was limestone carved into shapes no machine had made. Dozens of holes, basins, and channels had been cut into the bedrock, forming a circle nearly 40 feet across. Workers stopped. Archaeologists were called. And soon it became clear. This was not a natural formation. Someone had made it. But who? And why? The circle is composed of 24 large holes arranged in a near-perfect ring. Smaller cavities and channels connect them, as though designed to hold wooden posts or beams. To carve limestone with primitive tools is no easy task. It requires patience, planning, and vision. Whoever created the Miami Circle possessed all three. The first theory is that the circle formed the foundation of a massive structure. Wooden posts may have risen from the bedrock, supporting walls and a roof. Perhaps it was a council house, a temple, or a ceremonial hall large enough to hold dozens of people. In this interpretation, the Miami Circle was not a symbol but a building, one that stood as the heart of an ancient settlement. Another theory pushes the mystery further. Some believe the circle was never meant to hold a house at all. Instead, it may have been a sacred space, aligned with the heavens, used for rituals, dances, or offerings. The holes might not have held posts but marked positions for symbolic reasons, each one tied to the stars above or to spirits below. If so, then the Miami Circle was not practical architecture but sacred architecture. The people most often linked to the circle are the Tequesta. This Native American tribe lived in South Florida for centuries before European contact. They fished the waters of Biscayne Bay, gathered fruit from the forests, and hunted along the rivers. They built villages along the coast and around the mouth of the Miami River. Archaeological evidence places them here as early as 500 BCE. If the Miami Circle was their creation, it would mean they were capable of feats of engineering rarely attributed to coastal tribes. But the mystery deepens. Unlike burial mounds or shell middens, the circle contained almost no artifacts to explain its use. A few tools, shards of pottery, and fragments of bone were found, but nothing that revealed a clear purpose. There were no elaborate grave goods, no statues, no carvings with stories. The circle was cut into the earth and then left to time. Some have suggested that the Miami Circle is part of something larger, a network of sites across Florida that hint at an interconnected spiritual system. Others see in its geometry echoes of structures from distant lands, circles in Europe, South America, and the Caribbean. Was it coincidence? Or could the builders of the Miami Circle have been influenced by cultures far beyond Florida's shores? Skeptics, of course, offer simpler explanations. Perhaps the circle was nothing more than the foundation of a large communal dwelling, its importance exaggerated by modern imagination. Perhaps the holes once anchored canoes, or supported racks for drying fish. But even skeptics cannot deny the precision. A nearly perfect circle, carved into solid stone, suggests intent beyond the ordinary. The location adds to the intrigue. The Miami Circle sits at the confluence of river and bay, freshwater meeting salt, land meeting sea. Across cultures worldwide, such places were seen as sacred thresholds, points of connection between worlds. To the Tequesta, this spot may have been more than convenient real estate. It may have been holy ground. And then there is the survival of the circle itself. Miami is a city of constant construction, yet this ancient carving remained hidden beneath the soil for 2,000 years. It survived hurricanes, floods, and centuries of change, waiting until the moment a bulldozer uncovered it. The timing feels almost deliberate, as though the past demanded to be remembered before it was erased forever. Today, the Miami Circle is preserved as a historic site. Tourists can walk the park and stand above the bedrock, gazing down at the strange arrangement of holes. Few, however, grasp the weight of what they are seeing. Beneath the glass, towers, and neon lights of modern Miami lies evidence of a culture far older, a culture whose mysteries are still unfolding. The Miami Circle forces us to reconsider what we think we know about Florida's past. It proves that the people who lived here thousands of years ago were not simple wanderers surviving day to day. They were builders, planners, and thinkers. They left behind a structure that still confounds modern science. And the questions remain. Was it a temple to the sun? A meeting hall for chiefs? A map of the heavens carved into stone? Or was it something we cannot even imagine? A purpose lost with the voices of the people who made it? The circle does not answer. It only endures. Far to the south, where Florida stretches into the sea, lies a chain of islands known as the Keys. To most, they are a paradise of coral reefs, turquoise water, and endless horizon. But beneath those waves are secrets. Divers have reported strange formations, massive blocks of stone, and geometric patterns resting on the ocean floor. They call them the underwater cities of the Florida Keys, and their origin may hold the key to one of the greatest mysteries in American prehistory. The first sightings came from fishermen and local divers who spoke of walls, roads, and platforms buried beneath the sea. At first, many dismissed their claims as exaggerations or tricks of the light, but as sonar mapping and underwater exploration expanded, more evidence emerged. The seafloor revealed shapes that did not fit the randomness of coral growth or natural erosion. Straight lines, right angles, flat surfaces arranged in patterns too deliberate to be accidents of geology. One formation in particular sparked debate. A series of massive stone blocks lying in sequence, like the foundation of a structure. Another appeared to form a long platform, as though once part of a road or ceremonial plaza. Some divers swore they saw the outlines of chambers and steps carved into limestone now covered in sand and seagrass. The idea was both thrilling and unsettling. Could there be ruins of an ancient civilization lying just offshore, hidden by the waves? Dating such formations is notoriously difficult. Limestone does not yield the same easy answers as pottery or bone. But scientists know that the sea level around Florida has not always been what it is today. During the last ice age, vast glaciers locked away much of the Earth's water, lowering global sea levels. At that time, thousands of years ago, the Florida coastline stretched far beyond its current boundary. The shallow waters of the Keys would have been dry land. Entire regions now underwater may once have been home to human settlements. As the glaciers melted and seas rose, those lands disappeared. Villages, temples, gathering places, if they existed, were swallowed by the ocean. The underwater structures of the Florida Keys may be the remnants of that lost world. Some archaeologists suggest these sites were ceremonial centers. Positioned near the shorelines of their time, they may have been places where people gathered to worship the forces of nature, track the stars, or perform rituals. Others believe they were settlements, trading posts, or fishing communities strategically placed along ancient migration routes. The scale of the stonework suggests planning and cooperation, hallmarks of organized society. But skeptics argue otherwise. They point to natural processes that can mimic human construction. Limestone is shaped by water, wind, and tectonic shifts. Coral reefs collapse and leave patterns that appear man-made. To these researchers, the underwater cities are illusions, nature's architecture misread by human imagination. And yet, artifacts complicate the picture. Divers exploring near some of the formations have recovered tools, shards of pottery, and even traces of charcoal sealed in sediment. Such finds suggest that humans did indeed inhabit or use these areas when they were still above water. The debate is no longer whether people lived there. It is whether the stone formations themselves are natural features or the work of those people. The mystery of the underwater cities also ties into legends. Around the world, cultures speak of lands lost to the sea. The most famous, of course, is Atlantis. While few serious scholars claim the Florida Keys hide Atlantis itself, the idea resonates. Rising seas have erased countless coastal settlements across the globe. The Keys may be America's own version of those tales, a reminder that human history has always been vulnerable to the tides. For local communities, the mystery adds another layer to the beauty of the islands. Tour operators speak of ancient ruins beneath the waves. Divers travel from far away, hoping to glimpse a lost city with their own eyes. Some see it as myth-making, a story that makes the Keys even more magical. Others see it as history demanding attention, a truth waiting to be uncovered. Scientific exploration continues. Teams use sonar, underwater drones, and remote-operated vehicles to map the seafloor in greater detail. Every new scan reveals more shapes, some clearly natural, others still unresolved. Technology may yet provide clarity, but for now, the question remains suspended between geology and archaeology, between fact and legend. What is certain is this: humans lived along the ancient coasts of Florida long before European ships arrived. They fished these waters, hunted in the forests, and built lives that vanished with the rising seas. The underwater structures, whatever their origin, are reminders of that lost world. The Florida Keys underwater cities invite us to imagine what was. A time when the shoreline stretched farther, when land now submerged echoed with the voices of communities. A time when stone blocks may have formed plazas where rituals unfolded beneath the stars. A time erased not by conquest or fire, but by the slow and unstoppable rise of the ocean. The ocean does not easily give back its secrets. Sand buries, currents reshape, coral grows over stone, and yet the shapes remain, tempting us with possibilities. Were they temples, settlements, or nothing more than limestone trickery? The truth is still hidden beneath the waves. But one fact cannot be denied. The waters of the Keys conceal history. Whether natural formations touched by human hands or entire cities swallowed by time, they remind us that the story of Florida is older, deeper, and stranger than we ever imagined. The sea took the land, but not the mystery. Across the inland forests and wetlands of central Florida, far from the coastlines and beaches, lie scattered piles of stone. They are not natural rockfalls, nor the remains of modern construction. Instead, they are deliberate accumulations, mounds built by hands long forgotten. Known today as the Orange County Rock Mounds, they form one of the strangest and least understood archaeological puzzles in the state. For more than a century, explorers, farmers, and archaeologists have noted their presence. Some mounds are small, just a few stones gathered together. Others are broad, stretching several meters across. They appear near rivers, along ridges, and in fields that once served as travel routes. And while their locations seem intentional, their purpose remains elusive. Unlike the grand burial mounds of Crystal River, these rock piles have yielded little in the way of artifacts. A few shards of pottery, fragments of tools, and traces of charcoal have been found nearby, but nothing conclusive. no burials, no offerings, no elaborate goods. Just stones, stacked in ways that seem both ordinary and mysterious. Theories abound. One possibility is that the mounds were burial markers, simple monuments to the dead. Stone piles are used as grave markers in many cultures across the world. Yet no skeletal remains have been discovered beneath these particular formations. If they were graves, time has erased all trace of those interred. Another theory suggests the mounds were ceremonial. Their locations near water and elevated terrain may not be coincidental. In many Native American traditions, water and height carried spiritual meaning. The rock piles may have served as altars, offering places, or ritual markers linking the living with ancestral spirits. Others believe the mounds were practical rather than spiritual. They may have marked trails, acted as territorial boundaries, or served as waypoints for travelers. In a landscape before roads and maps, such markers could have been essential for navigation. Each pile of stones would have told a traveler, "Here is the path, here is the boundary, here is where others have gone before you." And then there are the more speculative theories. Some suggest the mounds align with celestial events, functioning as primitive observatories or calendars. Perhaps the placement of certain piles coincided with solstices, equinoxes, or the rising of key stars. If true, the mounds were not just stones but instruments of timekeeping, allowing ancient Floridians to track seasons for agriculture and ceremony. The greatest challenge in solving the mystery is the passage of time. Many mounds have been destroyed by farming, development, or erosion. Others remain, but without datable materials or consistent artifacts, their story is incomplete. What we are left with is a riddle: purposeful, human-made formations with no clear explanation. Yet their very mystery is meaningful. The Orange County rock mounds remind us that the lives of Florida's earliest inhabitants were layered with complexity. They were not only hunters and gatherers, they were people who left behind markers, symbols, and perhaps monuments to memory, even if we cannot decode them. The stones stand as evidence of a culture deeply connected to the land. From these scattered piles of stone, we turn to one of Florida's most famous legends, a tale that blends myth and history, the Fountain of Youth. According to the story, Spanish explorer Juan Ponce de León sailed to Florida in 1513, searching not just for land, but for a miraculous spring. Its waters, legend claimed, could restore youth and grant eternal life. The myth has echoed for centuries, tying itself to the city of St. Augustine and capturing the imagination of tourists and dreamers alike. But the truth is more complicated. Early Spanish records of Ponce de León's voyage make no mention of a magical spring. They describe exploration, conquest, and colonization, but not the Fountain of Youth. The connection between Ponce and the mythical waters appears only decades later, when storytellers and chroniclers sought to romanticize his journey. Still, the legend endured. St. Augustine embraced it, blending history with myth. Today, the Fountain of Youth Archaeological Park stands as a tourist attraction, complete with a well where visitors can sip water said to flow from the spring. Whether or not Ponce ever sought it, the idea of the Fountain of Youth has become inseparable from Florida's identity. Beneath the legend, however, lies a deeper truth. For native peoples, springs and waters were sacred. They were places of life, healing, and renewal. It is possible that early Spanish explorers heard such stories and, through misunderstanding or embellishment, transformed them into the myth of an eternal spring. What began as reverence for the natural world became, in European hands, a quest for immortality. The Fountain of Youth may not exist in the way legend describes, but it symbolizes something very real: the eternal human desire to resist time, to find renewal, to believe in mysteries greater than ourselves. Taken together, the Crystal River Mounds, the Miami Circle, the underwater formations of the Keys, the Orange County Rock Mounds, and the Fountain of Youth create a tapestry of Florida's ancient past. They are diverse, scattered, and enigmatic, Yet they share a common thread. Each site reminds us that the history of this land did not begin with European ships. It stretches back thousands of years into cultures whose achievements still whisper through earth, stone, and water. Florida's ancient mysteries challenge us to look beyond the surface, beyond beaches and theme parks, beyond highways and high-rises. They ask us to imagine the people who once walked these lands and waters, people who built monuments, carved circles, stacked stones, and told stories that have outlived them. Some of their secrets may never be solved. The Crystal River Mounds may forever keep parts of their meaning. The Miami Circle may remain, an enigma cut into stone. The underwater cities may stay hidden beneath the waves. And the Fountain of Youth may always straddle the line between myth and memory. But perhaps that is the point. Mystery itself is part of the legacy. The unanswered questions keep the past alive, sparking curiosity and imagination. They remind us that history is not a closed book, but a living story, one we are still discovering. Florida, beneath its modern shine, is a land of shadows and echoes. A place where forgotten civilizations left marks we are only beginning to understand. A place where myth and reality intertwine. And a place that whispers, across time and tide, that the past is stranger than fiction.